Thank you. Thanks to all of you for being here, and thanks everyone for the invitation. My name is Berenice Fernandez Nieto. I'm a PhD candidate, and I'm in the School of Advanced Studies and the University of Bari in Italy. And this research is also being developed along with the University of Alabama at Birmingham, with the Institute of Human Rights. So this presentation is going to be about one study that we conducted on the human rights in responsible AI, and we made a systematic review of the best practices in the industry. So I will continue. I cannot see the comments, but if you have any comment, please go ahead, and I will take the questions at the end. Let's start talking about why it is important to talk about human rights when we are looking at technologies. Does somebody know the person here that appears in the picture? Yeah? No? Okay. He's Robert Williams. He's an example of why technologies are not neutral. He's an example of the misuse of law enforcement personnel of facial recognition systems. And with these systems, they should be used to complement the criminal investigation activities and not like the sole use of determination for criminal cases. In this case, the facial recognition system mismatched him in a case of a small store robbery. And before even confirming the match, the police in Detroit arrest him in front of his family. And he was detained for 30 hours, and he had to pay the 1,000 personal bond to be free. Additionally, all his data was saved in the Detroit Police Criminal Database. So this is an example of why technologies, they are not neutral. They don't work well with other characteristics, because now we know about this bias in the facial recognition technologies, but in that time it was not that famous, that we haven't addressed this bias. And this kind of technologies that was widely used in the criminal systems and affected people that were not taken into consideration when designing these systems. So it is important to talk about this, because the generative AI is also raising. We are adopting it in many activities, and also because there are human rights concerns about privacy, bias, misinformation, etc. There is also, therefore, we all, and especially the people that are present here, we have to look at the industry commitment to human rights and social responsibility. Yes, everybody follow? Yeah. Okay. Now there is another image. Do you know what is this image about? I cannot say, so if someone can talk, please.
Please, if you have an answer to the questions, you can raise your digital hands and we will call you up.
Yeah, because I cannot see the comments and also I cannot see the reactions, but if somebody can answer, it's gonna be. Okay, this was a protest. There was a protest in 2023 in Hollywood about the use of AI for script creation for the movies. And it was a very famous strike that was for 180 days, more or less. And they were demanding to build safe guardrails against the use of these technologies for creation of scripts for movies. And in this case, this has a very good resolution, because all the demands, they were listened. But it's another example why there are key rights at risk when we are talking about new technologies, generative AI. And these rights are labor rights, privacy, equity, equality, freedom of speech, security. And even though we have a lot of laws and frameworks, and this framework for human rights and the AI Act, they fail to identify concrete guidelines for developers, how to translate the principles for human rights and responsible AI into practices for developers. And also the developers cannot capture all the complexity of human rights in single practices. So we have this impasse between regulatory efforts and rights-based approach. And this was in 2023, and at the beginning of this year, we have Sora, that now you can see is not only about text generation, but also about image, video, and technologies are developing very, very fast. So therefore, this is the context of our study. This study was conducted 2 years ago, and we wanted to see what are the top AI companies doing to protect human rights. We perform a systematic review and a comparative analysis of the strategies and actions taken by 4 leading companies. We choose OpenAI, Meta AI Research, Google AI, and Microsoft. And we choose 5 parameters: bias, privacy, cybersecurity, hate speech, and misinformation. So we look at all the efforts of these 4 companies, in terms of these 5 parameters. Our research questions were about what are the strategies and actions of these companies, what they are doing in terms of human rights when developing AI models, especially generative AI, what are the strengths and weaknesses of these actions, and what are the best practices. So at the end, we analyzed 192 documents, and these documents were coming from websites, articles, terms of use, reports, policies, and blog posts. All this information had to come directly from the company. We were not looking at interpretation of another people or from the media. We wanted to see how they present themselves in terms of research and the policies. And we performed thematic analysis. So this is the result of the thematic analysis. We use Atlas T to look at which words are the most common in the websites, for example, and the principles of the companies, and also to the research papers. And here, I don't know if you can see because it's very small letters, but Google, it refers more to ethics, but also to fairness, OpenAI about data management, but also ethics, Meta on research, fairness, technology impact, and Microsoft, they refer more on representation, diversity, accountability, and safety and compliance. We also create a framework to evaluate all these efforts. We did this for every indicator for bias, misinformation, cybersecurity, hate speech. We created indicators about internal diversity because we consider they cannot identify bias if they don't have diversity in the staff. But also we found that most of the companies, they have diversity in their statements about the principles of the company, but we wanted to see how this is translated into practice, like how diverse are the tools and the research lines when they are talking about AI. And we were looking if they have like a special team that there is especially focused on bias. And we created the assessment questions and the scale. This was a very comprehensive exercise, and we have all this information like accessible if you want to look and check and do all our evaluation. And we identify strengths and weaknesses for every company. For example, for OpenAI, they have a very good concept that is the constitutional AI. Constitutional AI is a framework for ensuring that AI systems adhere to the ethical principles or constitutional guidelines. And these principles are designed to guide the AI behavior, promoting fairness and transparency. They also have very good data controls in that time. They have this center, privacy center. I if I'm not remembering wrong, they have data management center. In this center, you can access your data, you can request the data that they have in their power, and you can even opt out from their treatment processes. But also they have weaknesses. One of the weaknesses is that all the research lines and tools, there are primary focus on English language and in the context, in Western context. They also have limited geographic and cultural diversity in bias mitigation strategies, and some privacy policies and tools may not be, maybe too technical for the common user. We also look at Meta. One of the findings in here is that they have very good real-time hate speech tools to detect the hate speech. And also they are doing very good in terms of educating the users. They have very good materials in terms of inform the audience how they can access to the data, how important is the data that they are giving to the companies, and how to manage the data. So they are making like very good contributions in terms of data literacy. But also they have weaknesses, and the weaknesses is that many of the solutions they are concentrated on the social media platforms, and there is less clarity about how they use generative AI tools. They they have an over-reliance on the US context for race and fairness related audits. They also need to diversify the collaborations with NGOs and with governments in the global south, because most of the collaborations in terms, for example, of electoral integrity, when there are elections in countries and they have to check about misinformation in the social platforms, all these collaborations are with the US, with Europe, but we haven't seen a lot of collaboration with other countries. And now with Google is very active. Google and Microsoft, they are very active in terms of research. Some of them, they share the findings and the methodology with the community. Google, for example, they has this secure AI framework and is shared as an open model. They also have extensive media literacy and disinformation efforts. They have very good privacy preserving technologies like Rapport and the federal learning with TensorFlow, and advanced cybersecurity teams. They have Mandiant and internal red teamings that are very strong and robust. But they have weaknesses. Again, they are centered in Europe and the global north. They need clearer communication on generative AI specific policies. When we were doing this research, it was not easy to find out when the user is interacting with an AI system. It was not clear if these interactions that are being used to train the model. So this kind of information is important because the user needs to know when the interaction of their interaction with a service like Gmail or any other service is being used to train AI. And for Microsoft, they also have a specific team. This team is the Fairness, Accountability, Transparency, and Ethics teams. And it's especially focused on responsible AI. And they also have very good research that they are sharing with the community, like Detoxigen, that is a way to test and improve content moderation with AI. And they have also a strong global cybersecurity presence in digital, for example, with the Digital Crimes Unit and Red Team. But again, they also have weaknesses, and these weaknesses are related to tools and portals can be hard to find and too technical for the average users in terms of how the user can manage the data they have, how they can choose the privacy personalization when in their account. And they also have unclear strategies specifically addressing generative AI bias or privacy challenges. So with all this exercise, we also found good practices that would strategies that these companies are doing. We identify them, and we are presenting them as best practices for other companies also to adopt them. But we also look at some weaknesses, and we are proposing new practices for these companies and for the entire AI industry. And in terms of bias, we are advising to engage more when NGOs and ethics and human rights research centers globally, because most of the collaborations are with governments, and usually just with governments, but they don't work very much with non-governmental organizations or with human rights organizations that they could help them to build responsible AI. Also, they need to ensure that teams, tools, and data sets reflect geographic and linguistic, cultural, and social diversity. Because, for example, most of the tools that are being built for hate speech, they are just in English. So they are letting most of the world outside this force. And this limitation is not only in the tools, but also in the research lines and in the staff inside the companies. And they also need to support transparency through open access to research and audits. In terms of tackling misinformation, they need to collaborate with experts in diverse regions, because I think it is going to be a good exercise for everyone if you want to see all these companies and they have the responsible AI teams, and to look at the diversity in these teams, because for misinformation, this is so contextual that you need to have someone from that region if you want to fight misinformation. So I think it's a very good exercise for all of us to look at the diversity of the teams when they are talking about ethical AI, responsible AI. How diverse are those staff, those team members? And they also need to expand the partnership on election security and critical event monitoring, to publish public reports on misinformation mitigation and removal efforts. As you know, many of these companies, they work with governments. The governments, there are many times they are requesting to remove content with the argument of misinformation or hate speech. Some of these companies, they publish how many requests they have for every government, but not all of them do that. And it's important for us to know how much information it's being removed and who is asking to remove this information. And to promote media literacy to raise the public awareness on generative AI risk. This on combating the hate speech, we also need diversity. We need to share the research and tools with smaller companies. And this is for the good of all the community, because we know that these companies, the big companies, they have the money to diversify the research line, to cooperate with others, but the small companies, they don't have the same capacity, the same economic capacity. And these big companies, they need to share their findings, their knowledge with all the community. And on privacy protection, they also need to make privacy settings more accessible and inclusive and user-friendly, especially with people with disabilities. They need to educate users through diverse formats like videos, guidelines. Again, Meta is doing a very good job in this dimension. And they also need to collaborate with regulators, researchers, and advocacy groups. On cybersecurity, they need to work with startups, governments, and academia to diversify the security research and development efforts and ensure inclusive access to data management tools, and especially for the users with disabilities. So, as you can see, there are many good practices in the AI industry, but there are also critical gaps. We see this focus on the global north in terms of research tools and also investment collaboration. It's so focused in the global north. They have limited visibility into actual enforcement, because when they talk about diversity, we don't see it in the staff. We don't see it in their tools. They need also accessibility for smaller and non-Western actors to the knowledge and to the tools. And they need to collaborate with no-governmental organizations, academia, and international organizations. But like arriving to our conclusion, responsible AI is a human rights imperative, and the industry must align the innovation with global ethical standards, and collaboration and diversity are the key. If you want to see more about this research, you can access the QR code. I think you have to, it's not open accessible, but you can always send me a message and I can send you the paper. And now it's time for the Q&A, and I added this image. I hope you know why is it in there. And I have two questions for you. What should companies prioritize, and what can you do as a developer or as a researcher to promote a more inclusive, responsible, and human rights-based AI?
Hello, Berenice. Do you want them to leave the answers in the chat, or do you want them to raise up their hands to speak?
Yeah, I would like to listen to them. Yeah.
Okay, so please, guys, I believe we have all gotten one or two things from this session. So please, if you have an answer to the questions on the screen, you can raise up your hands to speak. This is an interactive session, so she has shared her slides, spoken to it, and now it is the time for us to contribute. So please, if you have any answers to the questions she has shared. Okay, Florida, please go ahead. I see your hands first.
Okay, my name is Florida. I'm an advocate in Kenya. And what I believe that the companies, the main tech companies and the major tech players, they need to prioritize ethics by design. Let every AI created, let every large language model, let every product they create be prioritize ethics. Let it be something that, for example, let the large language models not promote bias, not let them be able. So, for example, in an African context, let them be able to understand the African way of doing things. Let it not be that when I search something African on TikTok, the pictures that come are very not, they're just not pleasing, and they do not speak the truth about the current Africa. So ethics by design. So from there on, we won't have to deal with a lot of consequences that come because of problems brought about by AI. And I also believe let them also prioritize transparency and accountability. Let them be able to take responsibility for the mistakes caused by AI and work towards correcting them. This will be a nice way of upholding human rights, because failure to do this, there'll be a gap, and which will consequently harm a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see like it is also important on to build our own narratives when we are talking about responsible AI and human rights, because right now the dominant narratives are Western narratives, and we need to build our own and our own practices. So I totally agree that we also need to focus on ethics by design and build our own vision of what does that mean. Thanks again for your contribution. Who wants to contribute?
Yeah, we have Hannah. Thank you, Florida, for that beautiful submission. The next person we have is Hannah. Please tell us your name and where you're joining us from and your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Naye Johanna. I'm a civic tech data analyst, joining from Nigeria. I think on my own, it would be something I think I've recently just been talking about, that the idea behind bias and all of these things we are talking about is based on the models, and all these AI tools actually is still being fused or being feeded or given data from humans. So it's the idea for me is, from the point of data collection, we need to begin to sieve out this bias. I mean, watching the presentation, I saw something about diversity and cultural diversity and all of this. These are things that we need to be to talk about from the point of data collection, which is we should begin to think about the gender bias that comes from AI, the career bias. All of these things are things that is due to the inputs that these models get, that they also publish, or they showcase this bias. So the awareness should start from the point of the data collected down, all the way down to the models being built, and then how the models are being built. And also, I think another thing we should also consider is also the part of awareness and literacy when it comes to AI ethics, beyond just the newsroom, the media personnel, also the developers, because sometimes I'm part of those that are in the technical team. We are so much, what the first person spoke about design. We are so much interested in the tool rather than what the solution the tool will be solving, and the community. So we tend to forget the community that this tool is for, and then we are so focused on that tool and the beauty and all of our skill sets, showing our skill sets on that tool, that we forget the part of AI ethics and all of this. So I think even beyond the users, the builders themselves need to begin to get training when it comes to, and I like the fact that they wrote researcher/developer, awareness and literacy on AI ethics, responsibility, which is the part of the accountability for the developer himself. So if for any reason in your model or in something you are putting out there, you had a reason to, rely on some level of AI and all of that, this should be shown, and let the people that are using your tool understand that process. And also the bias. If they don't understand the bias itself, what it is. So even when I am actually doing the bias, I'm actually creating the bias, I probably would not know I am doing that, because there is no proper awareness and literacy as per the ethics, responsibility, and the bias for whether a researcher or a developer, not just those that use it now. When I talk about the media personnel or the journalists or the people in the newsrooms. So that's for me. Then what can I do as a researcher? I think for organizations to, when we are done with this, it is also necessary that we begin to duplicate this, because another thing I've realized is that a lot of people at trainings and all of this kind of thing stops at the top levels, and they don't let it get down to the grassroots. And at the end of the day, it is the grassroots that feeds. It is the grassroots that feeds, the top levels. At the end of the day, it is whatever yours, I won't call them subordinates now, but whatever the top, the ground level, whatever they do is what you consider as a model, or you build on the top level. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. I totally agree with you. I think that it's important always to see that we sometimes look at data as something that is neutral, but in the case of Robert Williams, we can see that it's not. And if we are using past data to train models, we have to be aware that we are giving also unequal dynamics. In this case, Robert Williams, the system doesn't work well with their characteristics, so it's just focusing one kind of person, but also the data about how criminal justice has been in America. It's not a very good example. It's not a very good thing to feed the AI systems. And if we are going to use this data, then we have to challenge the data to always question where is it coming from, because there are biases. They are biases and everywhere, and acknowledge that it's good, because it's just everybody has bias. The important thing is to be aware of those. Thank you very much for your contribution. Who is the next person?
Okay, we have Tony next. Tony, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Karima Toumi from Egypt. When it comes to, I love that you mentioned that the focus of AI advancement and policy and any kind of rules is contained in the global north, and no one asks about us in developed countries or in underdeveloped countries, where not all, but most of the work is delegated to us. Many companies outsource their work to places where the labor is cheap, working conditions are not exactly great, and all of these jobs are going to basically vanish, and no one cares about how all these families and economies that are built on these jobs will just disappear. And upskilling, when it comes to upskilling, there are very few resources for many countries to find a scholarship or to find a manager in a company who wants to upskill the workforce, and everybody is going for cheaper labor. They're going for most, like for example, customer service is going to be all AI chatbots. So there will not be a human being answering your inquiries anymore. It's going to be a bot. So and profit and the bottom line is all what company owners and CEOs, they all care about. Upper management all care about the bottom line. So what we can do is, as like this workshop, summer school and others, they're very few. So maybe increase the number of workshops and webinars to let our voices be heard, and reach out there with research, with articles we could write, LinkedIn posts, just to be heard, and let the world know that it's all this mad race about the better compute, the faster AI, the smarter AGI, and the future is all about the big companies. Big companies are mad races between countries, the United States and China, and all of that. It doesn't care about the rest of us. They don't, they like what Michael Jackson said, they don't care about us. So I like your presentation very much. I like how it touched on several points that are very relevant, and thank you so much, Berenice, for the chance to present here. Thank you.
Thanks, Karim. I totally agree with you. I think that when we are talking about regulation, ethics, and responsible AI, even with developers, you don't see that diversity. They want to focus on human rights and responsible AI, but they are not including the global majority. And I think that diversity, when it comes to AI development and research, is not an option. The AI cannot be responsible if it's not including all of us. It cannot be ethical it's not including all voices. So thanks again for your contribution. Who is the next person?
Okay, next on the list to have Ramashu. Sorry if I butchered that name, but please, when you come up, help us to pronounce your name and tell us where you're from. Please go ahead, Ramashu.
Thank you so much, Berenice, for a wonderful and engaging presentation. My name is Khomotso Ramushu. I'm in South Africa at the moment. My comment basically also speaks to what the previous speaker mentioned, that companies and researchers alike have a regulatory environment that they can also refer back to, which Berenice, you spoke about early in your presentation. Because like the United Declaration for Human Rights, for instance, has inbuilt mechanisms or indices for us to consider bias. So, we can look at the different criteria or classifications that the UDHR speaks about for companies and researchers alike, to create a checklist for themselves, to look back on if they are indeed speaking to or adhering to the Declaration of Human Rights. Similarly, in terms of the regulatory environment, the different contexts where companies are working and where researchers' work is circulated, even when they submit ethics applications, etc., to their universities, have different AI acts which are constantly evolving, that they need to consider when they design research projects, build models, etc. So the legal fundis are always at work, and it's becoming more dynamic, and keeping up with these different acts is very useful in this regard. And speaking to these acts, you spoke about the general data protection regulatory frameworks. So whichever context you work in, you need to be mindful of protecting people's personal information and placing onus on companies and researchers alike to report whether they find data breaches and ways that they can better protect user rights. So in summation, the regulatory environment should always be prioritized, and researchers can help companies and states alike to develop good checklists, to develop better monitoring and evaluation systems, so that at the end cycle of your project, you're able to tick and look at, did I consider this element of bias, etc., and how did my system speak to or have any challenges with data breaches, protecting data, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramushu. I agree also with you that we have also this framework for data protection. We have the GDPR, and also we can see how many other countries that are doing the same. But also this collaboration with academia and the industry and human rights organization is vital. It's not just a good idea. It's needed to develop responsible models. Thanks again for your contribution. Who is the next person?
Up next, we have Rex. Rex, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Berenice, for your presentation. That's very insightful. I would like to, based on established discussions and what have been said, I would like to share a simple example with us. So I had the opportunity to interact with researchers who were working on disease and pest detection. And I'm speaking to the issue of what researchers should do and companies should do. I think that we need to, most of the biases that are coming beyond AI, they were existing. So now we need to solve that issue of those biases before we begin to feed our AI models with the kind of algorithms and data we have to put in there so that we can elicit the right responses. Let's imagine that we hadn't introduced AI first. Now, what the AI is doing is that it's replicating what already exists. So what we have identified is that we need to take a good look at the systems we have already before we get into AI. And the example I'm going to share is the fact that a group of researchers needed to collect data to detect disease and pest. They were tempted to use satellite images of crops that have been captured already. But we realized that we were in Ghana and we're doing that research. But when we feed our system with such data, it gives us feedback from what has been done already. Then the team decided that, okay, we would take the pain to go to the field and then take pictures of our own crops and then do the annotation and label the kind of diseases we see, and then feed that data into a system. Now, when we had done that, you now prompt the device to work, and then it gives you exactly what we have from Ghana. And it also goes to support the fact that most of the AI tools are focused on global north. I think that researchers and companies can decide to invest in gathering data from the grassroots and feeding that data with the models and then the algorithms so that we get a true reflection of what we want to see in every part of the world. Else, if we fail to go to the grassroots and then pick data in its raw form and work at it before we move into applying that data into our AI models, then we'll keep on having these issues of biases. And then we would also have these ethical issues. So for both companies and researchers, investing in data from grassroots and correcting the biases right before we get into the models would be a good thing for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Thanks a lot for your contribution. You are right. We need diversity in the data that's being collected, but also in the investments from the companies when they are doing research. They need to look more at the global majority. Thanks again for your contribution. Who is the next person?
Okay, up next we have MD Mahmood. Sorry, MD, please come up and tell us your name, where you're from, and your submission to the question.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is Rupok, and I am a faculty member of the Department of Law and Justice at Northeast University, Bangladesh. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Madam for your wonderful discussion. And it is a privilege to be here at this AI Summer School, where interdisciplinary perspectives are shaping the future of artificial intelligence. Now I would like to reflect on two key questions. So what should companies prioritize and what can we do as researchers in AI. In today's AI-driven world, companies must prioritize ethical accountability, data protection, and social responsibility beyond innovation. And the focus must be on human-centered design that supports inclusion and dignity. Secondly, bias detection and mitigation to prevent discrimination, especially in critical sectors like law, healthcare, and employment. Then transparency and explainability to build public trust and legal compliance, ensuring artificial intelligence applications respect national and international right frameworks. And then what can we do as researchers for artificial intelligence, for using artificial intelligence as a researcher and legal academic? I believe we hold a crucial role in shaping AI discourse. We must critically examine artificial intelligence legal and ethical implications, promote interdisciplinary research that combines law, ethics, and technology, and contribute to policy development to guide responsible artificial intelligence governance, and educate students and professionals on the importance of human rights, accountability, and artificial intelligence literacy. In the summary, I would like to tell that responsible artificial intelligence is not just a technical challenge, but a societal imperative. Companies must act with integrity, and we as researchers must remain vigilant, ethical, and collaborative. Only then can artificial intelligence be a force for justice, equality, and sustainable progress. And thank you.
Thank you, Nav. Thanks for your contribution. And you are right. There is the companies, they act more in the technical domain. Actually, right now we are building a tool for human rights impact assessment, and we are focusing in 3 dimensions. We are focusing on the technical side, like the AI development, but also on the internal practices of the company and the external practices, and this includes the interaction of industry with other companies, with governments, with society, with NGOs, because all the AI systems and how they are produced and how they are adopted in right society it acts in these 3 levels. So if we are going to build solutions, it has to be in the technical side, in internal organization, corporate governance, and also with how they interact with the society. So we need this approach. Thanks a lot for your contribution.
Thank you everyone for your contribution. In the chat, we also have Nozover, who said, thank you very much, Berenice, for such an interesting presentation. I think for ethics and corporate compliance perspective, there should be a code of ethics for employees, at least for the sake of ethical and responsible AI, not only by developers, but also users Currently, I am working on changing the company's code of ethics by adding the AI part and thinking about the guardrails. Feel free to ask me any questions you may have. Thanks. So this is from the chat section. Thank you very much, everyone, for contributing to this very interesting conversation about AI ethics, especially from the perspective of the Global South. Berenice, I don't know if you have any final words for us, something to, wrap up the session.
Oh, sorry, can you repeat? I have a little bit of noise.
Oh, great. So I don't know if you have anything for us before we wrap up the session. Thank you.
Yeah. First, I will talk about the image. This, I don't know if it's famous in your countries, but at least in Mexico, this image was very famous because it was supposed to be a kangaroo for emotional support that was not allowed to enter to board a plane. But obviously, it was not true. But the point is, like, the generations, the ones that they were like more literate in terms of technology, we fail to identify this as a fake news. So technology it's being like harder and harder to identify what is fake and what is reality. So this is like an example that the challenges, they will never stop. And my final thoughts, it's like we have a responsibility, all of us in here now, to make the voices of the global majority to be listened, not just to be included. Let's not allow our presence to be like tokenized. Let's make our knowledge, our experiences, capabilities to be taken into considerations when building responsible AI. And I would invite all of you to work on that, to make our voice to be listened, to work on our initiatives, to share our knowledge, and to work to make the global majority voices to be listened in these challenges on AI and responsible AI development. Thanks to all of you for being here today and for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Berenice. Before you go, thank you very much for that contribution. We also have one last question on YouTube. So Badmore streaming on YouTube is asking, please, can you explain what explainable AI is? Is it the same as AI ethics? This is Badmore streaming on YouTube. So that is the final question before we go.
I would say that ethics is more focused on the social aspect. I understand explainable AI has something that we can track how the decisions are being made. No, it's more on the technical side, but the ethical, it's more complex. It's more on not just looking at the models, but also the people who build the models and how they shape the artifacts, and also how it is affecting the environment. Because all these models, they are inserting in a specific contextual, political, social, and time context dependent scenarios, and therefore the implications there are going to be the same for everybody. So ethics looks more on this complexity, and explainable AI is more on my view, it's more on the technical stuff to be traceable. Here we have like a lot of people that are developers, but my interpretation would be more than that, more like looking at the complexity of the human nature and how it interacts with the AI artifacts.
Oh, thank you very much for that explanation. Thank you. I hope Badmos and the rest of us are able to catch up. Thank you very much, Berenice. All the participants have been in the chat. They've been thanking you. Great session, Berenice. Tony is saying great session. Hannah is saying thank you, Berenice. And also with their digital hands, they're also giving you a round of applause. Thank you very much for that impactful conversation. And I don't know if you mind leaving your LinkedIn profile on. Okay, we have someone's hand up. Okay, the hand is down, so we can reach out to you on LinkedIn, or participants can reach out to you on LinkedIn for further conversations.
Okay, yeah, I will share in the chat my LinkedIn. Some thanks to all of you for this session. Thanks.